Oh, here she is.
Yep. Okay, great. Well, good evening, everybody. I'm Carol Lisbon, Chair of the Planning Board. This is our March 3rd meeting, starting at 7:01 p.m. And this is being conducted via Zoom per the instructions and authorization of the governor. So I'm going to do a roll call vote of the committee. Jody Shu.
Here.
Val Lynn.
Here.
George Sidgwick.
Here.
And Katie Williams.
Here.
Okay, thank you very much, folks. We also have John Sullivan, Chair of the Concom, and Selectman Dave Haviland. So welcome to you as well. And we're going to get started right away with our first agenda. Oh, I'm sorry. We've started a new project. Do we have any citizens who are here to make a comment about any item that's not on the agenda this evening? I don't see any. So we will now jump to our regular board business, and the first item is a site plan review at 114 Center Street. And we just had an attendee show up named Marty Pepel-Jugowski. Marty?
I have to allow him to talk.
Okay.
Okay.
Marty, this is Carol Lisbon, Chair of the Planning Board. Are you here for a particular agenda item tonight, or to share a comment before the meeting begins with the agenda?
I'm just here to hear about the easement acceptance. I think I'm going to be up at the next meeting with my lawyer, Vin O'Brien, to discuss extinguishment of my portion of an easement. So I just wanted to listen in on that proceeding more broadly. But I'm not up tonight, just wanted to listen in.
Okay, wonderful. Well, welcome.
Thank you so much.
And I guess we'll look forward to seeing you at a future meeting.
Thank you.
Could you just give us your address if you would?
Yeah, sure. It's 10 Draper Road in
Ah,
Dover. I'm
got it.
two houses down from Adam, whose
Got
easement
it.
you guys recently extinguished.
Yep. Okay, very good. Okay, thank you. So with that, why don't we go to the site plan review, and I'll turn this over to Jasmine.
This plan first because I think it shows the site the best. Let me know.
Yes, I could see that.
Perfect. So this is the site. The road is, the Center Street is here. So here's the existing home and patio. They're proposing the new 40-foot by 20-foot swimming pool, a proposed pavilion of 16 by 26 feet, and the proposed pool house that's 34 by 29.5 feet that will also serve as an ADU. The ADU is less than 900 square feet. That was confirmed by Joe Doyle via email. He did say that it was 878 square feet. There will be cedar fence installed around the pool with additional landscaping. Yep.
Excuse me for a second, Jasmine.
Sure.
I'm sorry. Before we get into the actual decision and going through all that,
Sure.
and thank you for the overview there, I just wanted to give Artie a chance to.
Oh, sure. Let me ask him to unmute. Sorry.
Right.
Artie, can you speak?
Or better yet, can you hear us?
No, maybe I have to.
Can you hear me now?
We hear you, Artie.
Thank you very much for taking the time to review this application. My instructions from Sue was that I'm going to have to be fast because you guys have a full agenda, so I'll try to be as fast as I can.
Thank you.
Would you like me to talk about the project, or what Jasmine said is good enough?
Well, if there's anything to add from Jasmine's review.
So what's happening is that we're going to be going, so one of the things that we are doing on this project is the ADU unit at the pool house. We're going to be connecting that to the septic system, and we plan to get the approvals from the Board of Health. And at the same time, we have gone through looking at the plans with Mr. Angiuri, but we're going to be filing for approval through the engineering department for the site access and drainage and everything else. At this point, we feel that we have addressed all the issues that are a concern for you guys. We did the testing on the site to make sure that we can put the drainage field in there. And it's gonna be a little bit of a significant of a block retaining wall that we're gonna be putting on this hill in order to minimize the impact that we would have on cutting the trees. But other than that, I think it's a pretty straightforward project. Having said that, if you guys have any questions, I'm here to answer.
So what do you mean by issues of site access?
So what's happening is that you see how we got in, you see how we put a note in there, proposed construction access. So what's happening is that if it is that the limit of the disturbance is much bigger, another thing that Mr. Anjuri asked us to do is to put to prepare another plan on the engineering plan to show signs that he would like to see on the street to inform the public that, you know, when cars come in, that's going to be a sign saying construction ahead on both sides. So that's the engineering plan that we're going to be filing with him in order to satisfy the requirements for the stormwater and for the land disturbance part of this project.
So will there be trees that are taken down in the?
Yes, and we have marked on the plan the trees that we plan on on cutting it down. And we cut it, if you look in here, you're gonna see, so the requirements are that within the zoning setbacks, what trees are we cutting? So we cutting this 7-inch tree in there, and we are proposing 2 other trees to be planted on the side. The other trees that we are cutting are outside the zoning setback lines, and we are not proposing any replication for those trees because they are outside jurisdiction.
Okay.
And again, and what we are looking for from you would be for an approval subject to further approval from Board of Health and from the town engineer, which we will be going next. So that's
Yeah.
what
As all our decisions are subject to.
yeah.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. I'm going to open this up to questions from planning board members before we have Jasmine go through the actual decision.
Carol, I have a question. It's just about, is there an abutter on the right-hand side of this property? And because there's nothing on the engineering plan that shows like where anything on the adjoining parcel would be.
If you guys are kind enough to share the screen, I can show you the abutter, where the abutter's property is.
Oh, sure. Give me just one moment, Artie.
Yep.
Carol, is it okay if I promote him to panelist to allow him to share his
Of
screen?
course, absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Artie. You should be all set now.
Can you see my screen, guys?
Yes.
Yes.
So you see where the house would be for 120 is down here. This is where the driveway is. This is the barn that they got over there. So it's on the right-hand side. So we're not nearby. And this is where the location is for the house on number 120, the abutter on the right that you were referring to.
Perfect.
Good thing we have worked on both properties, so kind of helped out.
Convenient.
Yep. Stop share. Yep. Any questions? Any other questions, guys?
None for me. Thank you.
Anybody else?
There isn't a plan or rendering for the pool house, is there? Just out of curiosity.
I think it was in the packet.
There is.
Was
Yep.
it?
Would you
I
like
didn't
to
see-
see that?
Oh, sorry, I missed that.
Do you want me to pull it up?
That's all right. I can grab it right now myself. It's okay. Thanks.
It was like baked into a few page document, so it doesn't say like pool house rendering, so that might have been why you.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
It's only one story anyway, so it's not that tall.
No, I know.
So Jasmine, before you start going through the site plan review decision, would you mind updating the board on the whole conversation we had about how to address this, given the change of law?
Yes, so as you're, I think you're all aware, after we approved the changes to the ADU bylaw last year, in the summer, the Attorney General had released new laws, and in January, they actually released new regulations that stated that the town cannot limit certain aspects of the ADU. So we can no longer send it to special permit. It cannot be any type of discretionary permit cannot be done. So we are still allowed to use site plan review, which was confirmed by Nina, because it's not a discretionary permit. We're not saying yes or no, you can't build it. But essentially, the state has said these are allowed by right, so we cannot utilize special permit anymore to deny a project. So we have to remove our special permit language. And after we asked Nina, our town council, and I believe Jillian Barger was also the second one to review it. They had sent us a redlined version of how we need to edit our ADU bylaw moving forward. And as such, some of the findings in the decision that we normally would have voted on are crossed out in this particular application. So you can see where they've been removed so we can comply with the law. We had spoken with Nina about this, and her recommendation was we have to comply with the law as it is, and the update to the bylaw will follow after town meeting, but we can't enforce these things now.
So the decision that you received in your package did not reflect this. So I believe, Jasmine, do you have a new decision to show everyone?
Yes, and I just
Right.
struck through so everyone could see exactly the changes where we made them. So
Right.
this will, they'll obviously have to be renumbered and reformatted to match the new bylaw. But we can discuss how we'd like to see these from now until hopefully the bylaw should pass at town meeting. But if you'd like to continue to see it as a strike through or just use the new format that we're going to use going forward, we can discuss that after.
I would also mention that a third item that changed with the Affordable Housing Act signed in the summer on Beacon Hill was that we can no longer require that either the main house or the ADU be owner occupied. So when we reviewed the ADU bylaw for town meeting a couple of weeks ago, those three issues were specifically stated. We'll go through them again a little bit later tonight. But I felt it important that since the state law is effective February 2nd, that we do this decision based upon the new state law. So that's what you're saying, Jasmine.
All right, can we see them?
Yes.
So this is an application for a preliminary site plan review for an 878 square foot accessory dwelling unit / pool house, a 16 by 26 foot pavilion, and a 20 by 40 foot in-ground pool. It does have cedar fence proposed with landscaping. The cedar pavilion with asphalt shingle will match the existing house. The pool house ADU will be a single story with open porch and stone chimney. The siding, roofing, and windows and doors will match the color of the main home. Block retaining walls proposed to reduce the site impact. They are proposing to connect to the existing septic system, and site drainage is included in the project. Board of Health approval will be required, and so will stormwater approval by the town engineer. There's one 7-inch tree proposed to be cut within the setback lines, and the applicant is proposing to replace two 2-inch trees in replace of that one being removed. There's some low voltage lighting, proposed landscaping around. Pardon me. And the property will appear slightly altered from the road, as you will probably see the new accessory dwelling. So as we go through, these are the standard requirements. Compliance with the requirements of the lot size. The application does comply with the pool, the pergola, and the ADU. The existing driveway will not be disturbed. When we say that, we mean the driveway opening. The existing parking is adequate to serve the single-family use in the proposed ADU. The proposed fencing, landscaping, and structures are in kind with the existing dwelling and neighborhood. It's unlikely this will have a detrimental impact on the surrounding premises. Lighting has been designed not to spill onto abutting properties, and fencing is proposed as screening. The ADU, pool, and pavilion are designed in harmony with the existing site and are subject to Chapter 159 stormwater. The proposed ADU and pool may have impacts on natural resources, so the site is subject to stormwater Chapter 159. The proposed structures don't impact town resources. They appear to be consistent in quality and appearance to the existing house in harmony with the neighborhood, and it complies with the requirements of the zoning bylaw. So we are still allowed, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, sorry.
So we are still allowed to keep our minimum, our 900 square foot maximum floor area requirement. This was one of the ones that Nina and Jillian had struck through, the ingress and egress. And I think that's because the way it was explained to us, if I'm remembering correctly, was that it was based on who was living there, if it was a family member or not, and we can't dictate that it has to be owner occupied. So that's why this has come out, because this is entirely contingent upon the relationship of who's living in the ADU and who is not. And we can't make that designation. This was struck from the bylaw by Nina and Jillian as well, that this was too restrictive in this particular bylaw. The driveway opening shall remain, so the ADU will use the same driveway opening and curb cut. The parking may remain, and this has to come out. The Board of Appeals is removed here. The existing driveway will provide adequately screened parking. Limit of 1 ADU per lot. This was allowed to remain, so we can still say only 1 ADU per lot, and the architectural guidelines were removed as well.
So you will see that as we do site plan review coming for the future now, starting today, that the that the conditions are really the same as the ones that we work with site plan review all the time. And there are only 1, 2, 3, 4 that will now be specific to ADUs, and those 4 will show up in the new amended bylaw that we go to town meeting with. So all that stuff about special permits and working with the ZBA is out. Any questions on those so far?
If I can say something.
Sure, Artie.
Jasmine, just a typo, I believe. You have the applicant was submitted on May 2025, and that might not work, right? So maybe you want to change it to February.
Oh, goodness, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Artie.
Thank you.
Actually, I have one question, Artie, as we were reading through this. Is the temporary driveway remaining? Because one of the bylaws is that they have to fill the pool with a water truck. So does a water truck, I mean, I know they have really long hoses, but I can't tell on your schematic how far the pool is from the driveway. Is that going to be okay?
So what's going to happen is that we are not, so the driveway will not be changing. The existing asphalt driveway will remain. We're going to be doing just a construction access. So what's happening is that we're going to put the stone on the edge of the house. So when the heavy trucks come out, they don't drag the dirt to the street on Center Street. So what's going to happen is once the project is done, our intention is to remove that and bring it back to natural conditions without having the need for a truck to be, for a specific driveway to be there. So my expectation would be in the future, if they're going to have a truck to drive over on that area, it's going to already be compacted, but it's not going to be designated as a driveway. It's just going to be part of the lawn area, and the truck certainly can drive over the lawn.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Artie, just curiosity, since
Yep.
it's none of our business, and now it's even more so because it's irrelevant to the bylaw. But just out of curiosity, I noticed that the applicant's address is not in Massachusetts. Is this property planning to be one of those new rentals for both the main house and the ADU, or is the owner expected to live in one of the units?
So the owner lives at the house, and the reason why he doesn't have the Massachusetts address is because everything is being done through his attorney, and the attorney is located in New York. So all the paperwork is going to him. It's my understanding that he expects his daughter every so often when she comes to come and stay there. But it's going to be like, when she comes for vacation or visiting and that kind of stuff. So
Okay.
I don't believe that is being designed for rental. It's more like, for family members.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any more questions from the planning board?
None for me, thank you.
Okay, in that case, Jasmine, would you like to go through the decision? Actually, it's pretty simple, so let me just save time since I have to read it anyway. Okay? So after considering the application and other materials submitted at its meeting of February 3rd, 2025, the board approved the plans for 114 Center Street with the following conditions. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, minor modifications to the preliminary site plan may be approved administratively by the planning board chair. 2, any future modifications to the site shall be reviewed and approved by the planning board. 3, the lighting on the site must not spill over onto any adjoining property. 4, the pool must be filled by water truck. 5, short-term rental is prohibited, and ADU shall not be used as the short-term rental as defined in section 185-5 of the Dover zoning bylaw. 6, the site is subject to review by the Board of Health. 7, the site is subject to review approval by the building department. And 8, the site is subject to stormwater chapter 159 review by the Department of Public Works. Do I hear a second?
Second,
Okay, great. I will take a vote. Jody Shu,
yes.
Val Lynn,
Yes,
George Sidgwick,
Yes.
and Carol Lisbon, yes. Okay, Artie, thank you very much.
Have a good night.
You too. Okay, next item on the agenda is review of the draft bylaw language for the warrant article regarding the acceptance of town owed easements. And as of this afternoon, there has been a change. So easements will be the death of us yet, I'll tell you. So it appears that the 4 easements that were identified in the PowerPoint that we have reviewed with you for acceptance at town meeting, those being the Bar K Estates around Hartford Street, 139 Center Street, which is by Wild Woods, the 1986 Taylor Estates, which a little blurb off of Village Hill Road, and Wilson's Way. Those 4 don't seem to match the motions that have been developed over time and which had been reviewed with Nina last week. And George and I sat down today at the townhouse to mix and match and make sure we knew which motion represented which slide. And it ended up that there was various inconsistencies. So given everything on our plate and given the difficult history that we have had with easements over the last 3 years, I would like to propose the following. The Bar K Estates easement from 1992, which covers Hartford Street, Craw Drive, is very clear, very simple, and we have the appropriate motion. The motion includes all the references to the Registry of Deeds and the land use and so forth. that's the only one that seems to be correct right now. So I would like to propose that we take the 139 or 137, depending upon who you ask, Center Street easement on Wildwoods, the Taylor Estates easement, and put those aside and not address them. The Wilson's Way easement, for which we do not have a written motion, but if you remember, the Wilson's Way easement relates to a citizen's petition article at town meeting to accept Wilson's Way as a town road. And according to Jillian Barger, who works with Nina at Anderson and Krieger, it's very possible that in order to accept the road requires that all the conditions of the subdivision have been adhered to. And if a condition of the subdivision is acceptance of the easement, then the question is, does the easement need to be accepted by town meeting? Or can it just be the way it's been for the last 25 years, the last 15 years?
Mm.
And if in fact both have to be done concurrently, is the best approach to do it as one article versus two? Because let's say the easement was turned down in our article, which always comes before citizens' articles, then what happens to the citizens' article? So, nothing's easy here. I sent an email to Nina and to Jillian today, copying George and Jasmine, explaining that we're going to take two of them out, that will do the Bar-K, and that we really need town council to work on developing the appropriate motion for Wilson's Way and for reviewing the actual subdivision decision to make sure that that the two steps being requested at the 2025 town meeting are correct and complete. So we will wait to hear from them on that. That type of thing can wait until mid-April to get resolved. We obviously need to get it resolved, but actually we don't. I take it back. So we can make changes through April to get that resolved. So we'll wait for town council. Concurrently with that discussion, my frustration showed through. And Amy Moot happened to be with us from the Conservation Commission, and John, you're smiling. And she started in, of course, Amy and John are the two trail experts here in Dover. And Amy was giving us lots of history. And it occurred to me, as I think about the difficulty we have had as a planning board of addressing some of these easements that have come before us, it's because we don't know the trail systems. And we don't know the linkages, and it's hard for us to put it into perspective. So I suggested to Amy that the planning board tonight might take a vote and formally ask the Open Space Committee to take over all future work on firming up and handling easements. So I'd like your thoughts on that before I make a motion to that point. And I'd also like to hear from John on that as well. John, I'm putting you on the spot.
You are. I wasn't expecting that at all, but I'll let's see. What I've noticed in a few of these 90s subdivisions, and this is where many of these predominantly come from, was the equestrian easements and recreational easements, and they made a lot of sense there to as part of the quid pro quo of when people are looking for waivers for things. I know that well, I don't know. That's our issue. We've had the same issue as we try to explore these things. And Wilson's Way, there is an easement that goes through there, and it was promulgated by the planning board decision. And we're still trying to figure out. Some of the ones in the past had said that the easements would then be held by conservation, and some of the certificates of action for the planning board requirements make it a requirement that the easements be deeded, and that helped answer many questions. And but what I don't know, and Amy may know, off the top of her head is whether or not Wilson's Way was deeded. Do you know, Carol, if there was language for that for Wilson's Way easement?
I don't know for sure. George, do you happen to know? I believe I mentioned, I may
No,
have
I'm
mentioned-
going through my notes here from Amy.
But again, when town council does their due diligence, they should,
Yeah, they can pick that up. So my question, and then having having open space, would the concept be that they would oversee these things, but would they actually at some point hold title? Do you know?
no, no,
No.
no.
So it would be the town that would, very often there, it's, I think the idea of including in certificates of action that such easements be deeded to the town. And the wording typically had been that, to the townspeople and the town.
Right.
And then that allows the town to then appoint something like open space to manage those properties, but still have the ability to accept it. And I guess that then comes back to who does the actual accepting. And normally with planning board, there are bonds in place before a subdivision is released.
Right.
And that would make sense relative to Wilson Way to make sure everything there was accepted. And I think very often they'd said, a separate deed had to be granted for easements, and that it might be an interesting conundrum if the developer is no longer involved there, whether they can grant an easement at that point. But then it also gives us good fodder for moving forward to make sure that's added to the checklist of things to close out subdivisions with, so that we can try to avoid our children encountering this when they become board members. So
Well said.
so that's been our experience as we've been going through that. And Wilson's Way, we actually, there was an agreement as part of that subdivision where conservation was supposed to get I think it might have been 8 acres of property, and we'd walk the easements. And we finally, before that developer left town, we got that piece of property. We got it deeded to us. But the easements, as far as we could tell, and I don't want to speak for Amy, but I'm not sure if the easements were fully, if they were deeded or not. I just don't know that off the top of my head. So I'm not pronouncing that they weren't. I just don't know if that was the case. And then there was a question as to whether during the development of some of the houses along those easements, whether they changed the grading and made those easements unpassable, which could easily be changed by removing some of the grading. So.
Yeah, and we've also found in going over easements from that Courtney had identified back in 2022 that that some of the deeds had in fact been signed by both the Board of Selectmen and the Conservation Commission. And once that's done, then it does not have to go to town meeting to firm up ability of extinguishment. So given all that, and given the research that seems to have to be done, and the many layers of onions and documents that need to be researched over the years, that's why I felt this afternoon that we've had enough with easements. And between the Open Space Committee and the Conservation Commission, who would ultimately, I think, hold the easement. That's the best future for Dover is to have those easements held, I think, by the Conservation Commission. You guys do such a good job with those. But that the planning board is, other than the fact that these were established by the planning board in the first place with subdivisions, our ability to track these has diminished. So are there any planning board members who would not agree with this recommendation that I am making? Okay, so please don't jump with joy, but so I am going to take a vote because we do have an open space committee meeting tomorrow night, and depending on tonight's vote, I will send out an email to them copying all the other powers that be in Dover, informing them of this decision. So I'm going to make a motion to request that the Open Space Committee assume responsibility for verifying and determining the validity of easements in Dover. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any more questions or comments by
I
planning
just have
board?
one question about the process then. So up until now, we've understood it to be the role of the planning board to release those easements
To extinguish them.
or to extinguish them. And
So-
so with a vote like this, effectively handing off that duty to,
No, I'm sorry, I've got to clarify then. Thank
okay,
you, thank you.
And
So,
also, Carol, just to clarify, you mentioned that who's the duty of sort of verification. I don't know if that's the same thing as the duty of recommending for acceptance or actually accepting them.
well, so easements, as John gave us a history of, easements are done through subdivisions. Right? So a subdivision is a responsibility of the planning board. So are you saying the creation of new ones or acceptance of ones that are already there? Because we've already, the planning board is already by the subdivision decision in itself. The planning board has already
created one.
created a valid easement. The question that we've all been wrestling with is that over the decades, the Ts weren't crossed, the Is weren't dotted. Easements weren't accepted at town meeting.
Because it's like there was lack of clarity of whose job that was, sort of.
Probably, and that, yep, and so the appropriate deeds were never done. So there's all this, as you've, lived, George, there's all this research that needs to get done to exactly understand what was done, when it was done, who signed it, who's holding the easement, is it the Board of Selectmen or is it the Conservation Commission? Right? So that's what I mean by the Open Space Committee taking that on.
And then they would
Mhm.
presumably hand it back to some other body for further action if needed.
Well, probably the Conservation Commission.
Okay.
So that was my,
Yeah.
may I?
Please, John, absolutely.
yeah. So that was my question, because I'm not sure if open space technically has a budget. So, so they have the brains to review these things, but I think, as Jody mentioned, they probably should, the ownership should reside in a board that has a budget and has the ability to oversee.
Like the Conservation Commission.
I am anti-imperialist in this particular point, but we're trying to, we have gotten much better relative to active maintenance. And so and the concept that you mentioned earlier of wanting trails to connect with other trails. And allow for that continuance through our properties. But yeah, if so decided, but I think also the planning board has the ability, when they grant subdivisions, to require a deed to be for public use, and the description of an easement, and to hold it up with a bond if it hasn't been done. And then they're generally accepted, it looks like, and this is something to check with Nina, that chapter 40, section 8C, if in accepting that, you just make reference to that, that may be what you need to have it accepted. You have something that's recorded at the registry, and that may not require town acceptance when it comes to easements.
Well, rest assured, if we get a subdivision, which we haven't had in quite some time, but if
Mhm.
we do get a subdivision that's going to require easements, or for that matter, the ZBA works on 40Bs that
Mhm.
might have easements, that I think the townhouse is now aware
Mm.
that there's a process that needs to be adhered to
Mhm.
and run through legal counsel to make sure that everything is done, to your point, totally properly according to whatever chapters might exist and whatever procedures need to list with the registry. Because
Mhm.
that is where we have fallen short over the decades.
So I think, yeah, and I think we're historically finding out, but so I share Jody's concern. The idea is to have open space because they have this institutional knowledge to be able to review it, but that figure out a way for the wording so that they're not maybe change the word responsibility to something else, to some, to review so that they can then send it to the appropriate board.
Well, so to that point, would you be willing to be included in this recommendation? I mean, Conservation Commission?
No, I think open, because we work well with open space.
Yes, yeah.
And that the concept of open space, and then many of the open space folks are also DLCT members with
Yep.
their own easements. I think having, they're almost like a knowledge repository, and then it can go back to whichever, if it's a subdivision orientation, but you want conservation to have it, you could make that as part of your certificate of action.
Yes,
And-
I have no doubt that that we will not be getting into this situation with future
Right,
easement,
right.
right?
Mhm. I mean, I'm all in favor of future easements, and I'm all in favor if they're conservationally, helpful for it to be stated that it's it be granted to conservation, on a recordable
Oh,
document.
Yep,
Yeah,
I
and
think
then the
we're
other
talking
thing is,
the ones that are
and
sort of limbo, right?
yes.
Yeah, I think the
the ones
thing
that
there is-
currently exist.
Yeah.
well, I think what I see with Wilson Way, and plus that easement there, is that historically we've always every 8 years or so, because we do so few subdivisions, which is part of the
Mhm.
reason we have this issue.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
that every 8 years or so, and it's classic in other towns, that once a new road is done, and to make sure that sidewalks in other towns, but not here, but are in place, that all the necessary infrastructure is in place, that the town will then accept it and take upon it the maintenance responsibility. So that in most towns, if it hasn't been accepted formally, it's still viewed as a private road, and in some towns, they won't plow it. We've been much more understanding there, and will plow things. But it's that type of thing. And so that's where the planning board comes back, and it goes to a town meeting to accept certain ways, to make them public ways. And then the easements, you can make that, going forward, you can make that a requirement that deed to the easement, and any, more importantly, any house lots that are deeded out make reference to an easement if the easement runs through there.
Mhm.
And then that easement could be accepted even before the road is done in the future.
Yeah, I mean, the road thing is a big issue right now, folks. If, to John's point, the issue about Tisdale Drive and whether it's a public road or a private road and
Mhm.
how it impacts, Red Robin 2
Mm.
Mhm,
is,
mhm.
is just that, And, previous, a supervisor of highways, was, always very willing to meet the needs of Dover's residents by plowing the roads and so forth. But again, the Ts and the Is.
Mhm.
Um,
And it's interesting, I don't know on the front section of Tisdale, but it's not unusual for condo developments to maintain private road access so that the plowing is up to them. In that case, you have houses going in. I don't know historically whether that was an accepted road by default years ago, grandfathered in some way. But then the second portion of that road that made the access to Tisdale, I don't even know if it was intended to be a public road. So
Right,
let's have fun with that.
yeah. The ZBA is having lots of fun with it,
So
absolutely.
so in relative back to the motion there, and I'm assuming that you discussed that with Amy rather than just,
Yes, yes, no,
uh,
it's a
yeah, so
conversation with Amy today.
as opposed to a new surprise. But the idea of them acting as the clearinghouse for these things, I think is appropriate. I don't know if, and then I think having it go back to the appropriate agency, department or board, would work well, and they can just make sure that Ts are crossed and Is dotted.
Right.
Mhm.
So thank you, John. That's really been helpful. So let me try this. The planning board recommends that easements that exist in Dover as of 3/3/25 be the responsibility of Open Space Committee for determination that all legal steps have been taken to register and firm up ownership of the easement. Once all that is done, then the town with a capital T can
Mhm.
decide whether they want to.
What to do,
Exactly.
right? Open space can make a recommendation, right? To
Exactly.
Mhm.
powers that be, whatever they are. Yeah,
Mhm.
that sounds good to me.
Would you still have open space, thinking about Marty, who's on here with his hand up, that would it be open space that would also give upon that review, give recommendations for extinguishment?
Well, we
Or
always
would-
ask open space anyway when they come to the planning board. So
What's that?
we always ask open space committee anyway
Okay.
when it
Mhm.
comes to the planning board. So when the vote was taken recently to extinguish the easement at number 2, I think it was Draper Road.
Mhm.
That was done with comments from the open space committee.
Oh, well, okay, great. So then, yeah, and then that seems like it is consistent with then coming back to planning board, which granted that which requested that easement in the first place.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so do I have a second to that motion?
Second,
Okay, Val,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
Jody?
yes.
And Carol, yes. Okay, thank you very much. John, I apologize for putting you on the spot, but it was actually
Well,
quite fortuitous that you were here this evening. So appreciate all your input.
yeah, I hope it was helpful.
Was?
Carol, I just want to recognize that Marty's hand is raised, and I'm not
Oh,
sure.
okay. Marty,
Hey, can you hear me? Yeah,
Yes,
so
I can.
first off, hey, John, look forward to seeing you at the Concom meeting next week.
As always.
Yes, it's going to be like the last one, above board, simple, straightforward. We want to be on good terms with you guys. So Carol, sorry, I just wanted to understand, given this uncertainty, we have our paperwork in front of you. We thought we would actually be up tonight. I guess we're slipping to the next one. How do you want us to handle? Should we come to you guys for our extinguishment, or
Same
you
process.
know?
Marty, same process that was used by Adam.
Okay, all right, we'll come to you guys next time,
Yep,
and it'll
yep.
be, we're going to use the same docs and all that. All right, thank you so much.
Yep,
Really
yeah,
appreciate
I
your
mean,
time.
Vin went through that as well. So yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm just curious, Carol, was that extinguishment, has that already been run through open space for discussion, or?
It went through open space. Open space suggested that it not be extinguished,
Mm-hmm.
and we recommended and voted to extinguish.
Okay.
Any further questions on easements? That's agenda item number 2B. Okay, so just to recap, sometime in April, we will have figured out with town council how many easements we will be discussing at town meeting. Maybe 1, maybe 2. Okay. So item number 2C is review of all the warrant articles. We have an open hearing on March 17th. It ends up that there aren't any planning board members in Dover on the 17th of March. So Jasmine has offered to attend the in-person open hearing to present the slides that we will go through very briefly this evening as well. And I'm sure she'll just do a great job. So that will take care of open hearing. And of course, it's going to be recorded, so we'll be able to, in addition to whatever notes Jasmine takes, we'll also all be able to listen to the presentation to see if there's any further edits we would like to make to the final slides for town meeting in May. So Jasmine and I met with Nina last week to go over the articles, and I'll turn this over to Jasmine. That's what she's showing on the screen right now.
Okay, so we, as Carol said, we had met with Nina on this last week. These are all relatively straightforward. This is not. Sorry, I'm just trying to see if this is.
February
Yes,
20th.
okay, these are the ones that Nina had. Okay. I just think that I need to add at the end of every one of these. Oh no, they're in there now. The offices of the town clerk. Okay, sorry. So this one's relatively straightforward. Modification to accessory dwelling unit, like we discussed. We cannot require any discretionary approval, so we have to remove the site plan, special permit, excuse me, approval for detached ADUs. We have to remove the owner occupied restrictions, unenforceable design guidelines, and amend our schedule of use table, chapter 18510, to reflect this change, as it does require a special permit for detached ADUs. We have to amend that as well. And we'll have obviously the complete amendment text in file with the town clerk and in the planning board. Does anybody have any questions on the ADU changes? Next is the modification to the site plan review, which we've discussed. It's just to extend the time from 30 days to 60 days. So we're just extending the timeline to issue a decision under site plan review. A modification to the floodplain district, again, very simple. We're still waiting on maps. I'll be reaching out again to Eric this week on where we stand with those. We only have 2 updates that we are required to make to this bylaw, which is just an update of the name of the maps and the dates. And then the modification to various clarifying administrative edits to the zoning bylaw. These are edits that happen to chapters 185.5, 185.17, and 185.25 of the zoning bylaw. And these edits were recommended by the building department, so they're mostly administrative, such as adding asterisks for clarification in the use table, clarifying definitions between small and large daycares, clarifying definitions on, no, I'm sorry, another asterisk in the use table, one for setbacks for accessory structures, and one just referencing the enforcement of chapter 159.
So that's it. These are the motions. This is what will appear in the blue book.
Okay.
And this obviously does not reflect the red-lined actual bylaw that we've also reviewed at other meetings. And we'll get a whole set of all this material out to you sometime in early April before the public hearing, which is scheduled for April 14th. So any questions on these? Okay. Jody, would you like to pull up the slides? And we're going to quickly go through those.
I think I have to make her a co-host, sorry.
We're talking about COA. Those slides?
No, I'm sorry, the planning board slides, the open hearing slides.
You want Jody to
Oh,
pull up?
the ones I gave at the COA, but not for the MBTA, but for
You mean
the.
Jasmine, sorry.
You want
said
me to pull?
Jody.
I'm
Yes,
sorry.
that's okay.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
You threw us both for a loop.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me pull those up.
So as most of you know, because you've been on the planning board for a while, once we start getting into town meeting mode, and once the open hearing is done and the blue book starts to come out, you may be asked by a friend or neighbor or somebody who recognizes you as from the planning board at Roach Brothers or Shaw's or wherever. So please do spend the time just to sort of review these slides. We've tried to include all the information in the slide so that anybody can give them. And we're probably going to be changing the format sometime before the public hearing in April to go back to the format that we used last year for town meeting, I think, which was a little bit more effective. But these slides are chock full of information. So let's just, I'm just going to go through them very quickly. This is what I gave at the Council on Aging presentation last week. we talked about the 5 warrant articles that we have and that we still have. Next slide.
Oh, sorry.
So we don't know what the order of the articles are yet. The selectmen have not, to my knowledge, and Jasmine, you haven't heard anything either, right?
No, I have not.
Usually by this point, they've ordered the articles, so we don't know what the order of the articles are yet. Sometimes it does impact the political aspect of getting to yes, but at this point, we don't know what they are. So easements are a 50% vote. They're not a bylaw. And let's just quickly go through. Next slide. We've already gone through over the last 3 years what easements are for. We've talked about it tonight. Next slide. We will show.
Sorry, I'm going.
We will
Too fast.
show. So this is the one, the Barkay Estates. As you can see, it's a very simple easement and a worthwhile easement given what it connects. So we have the appropriate motion that identifies this property, this easement. So we'll definitely do this one. And the next one, and the next one after that. These are the 2 that we're taking off right off the bat. And the next one is Wilson's Way, and we'll have to see what happens with town council. And that's it for the easements. The next one will be the ADU article. We just went through it. We just went through the motion. It too is a 50% vote. If you remember, even though it's a bylaw, when the state passed their laws back in 2022, 2023, they made the AD bylaw a 50% bylaw, not a 2/3 zoning bylaw, to ease passage. And it did help us as well. So any amendment to it will also be 50%. This just gives the history in Dover of how we got to where we are today. And the Affordable Homes Act that was signed in August of this past summer, which is creating the issue for us. Wellesley and Needham are doing the exact same thing, almost in the exact same way to their ADU bylaws. So next slide. Whoops.
Did I go too far?
There we go. Okay, I'm sorry. Next slide. So these are the 4 things that we need to do. Jasmine discussed them when she read the motion, and we discussed them a couple of meetings ago when we were looking at the red line version. Once again, it's important to know and to let people know if they ask you questions that these are not changes that Dover wanted to make. These are changes that are now required by law. We have no choice. And should we not approve this bylaw, it would be irrelevant because the state law trumps the local law. But obviously, best practices is that our local laws adhere to state law for simplicity's sake, if nothing else. So that's what we'll be doing on the ADUs. Site plan review, again, is zoning bylaw. So this case is traditional zoning bylaw, so it's a 2/3 vote. This is just asking for a 30 to 60-day extension of approvals so that we have more time to do our due diligence. We have more time to notify abutters, and abutters have more time to inform us of any concerns that they might have. Next slide. The floodplain can't get much simpler than this. We're just waiting for the map. And once we get the map, the town can approve it. And therefore, those folks that have property in the floodplain will be able to get national flood insurance. And these are just a couple of administrative changes requested by the building department. It's a 2/3 vote to make the bylaws a little more explanatory and less confusing for those that are looking at them. And I did this in 7.5 minutes at the COA. I don't know how much time is spent right now. But as you can see, these are, as bylaws go, pretty simple warrant articles for us. So that's it. These are the slides that are going to be presented at the open hearing. If any of you at any point between now and the 17th have any thoughts on additional points that should be made to help us get to yes, please convey them to Jasmine. Jasmine can add them to the slides and include them in her presentation at the open hearing.
And just for clarity, when Carol says the format from last year, she means including the slides of the pros and cons of them.
Right.
So that we'll be adding that as well. So that's what you were thinking. Carol's on top of it, so we'll be adding those. But of course, obviously, anything else.
I just have one question on the ADU slide, the overview slide.
Sure.
This is pretty basic. Maybe others don't see it this way, but in the interest of sort of clarity and simplicity, if I'm looking at this, yeah,
Sure. Sorry, let me just get there. It's still loading. Sorry.
yeah. No, just super simple, but it says at the top, summary of proposed changes. The next one, yeah. Yeah. Would it be just for the purposes of clarity? I know we kind of say it a little bit in the prior slide, but summary proposed changes in the next line says something to the effect of, we are removing the following portions of our bylaw that no longer comply with updated state law or something to make it super clear, or is that kind of too much? Okay.
You know, I think, no, it's a good point, George, because it really is the point of the whole
Right.
process, right?
Exactly.
But again, I think, I'm not sure that we need to change this slide because we're going to be changing these slides and putting them into the other format.
Okay.
But it's a
Right.
good point to note for the other format.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh, right. I see what you mean. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Could I ask a really dumb question at the risk of making a fool of myself? I love how you've explained this, Carol, particularly the ADUs, you know, the compliance with state law, that state law trumps local law. Right into my mind comes Title V.
Mhm.
How does one respond to that?
I don't know. Is John still there?
Yes, I will. Hold on just a minute. Let me,
I know it's I don't want to drag this
Because
out for
Title
everybody,
V,
sorry.
because
yeah, so no, I think
we
I
say
think I
Title
see Jody.
V, but it's also the same thing with wetlands, right? Those are the two that,
Well, it's a little different. And
No?
I
Okay.
think, Jody, let me sort of restate and see if this is what you're meaning. So we have our own bylaw currently for ADUs, and now the state has come up with something that supersedes that.
Correct.
And we have our own guidelines for septic systems, but Title V supposedly supersedes that. Is that what you're thinking of?
That's what I'm asking, right,
Okay,
exactly.
so, and I think it actually in Title V, it works in reverse. Title V is a baseline of what's acceptable for the state for septic requirements. And it allows for towns that can make their case for having special circumstances to have stricter regulations than state Title V.
Okay.
So on one
But
end,
not the
Title
reverse.
V
We
is the
couldn't have
base, and on the other end, it's the other one is a superseding.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. That's super helpful.
Okay, you're welcome.
that being said, over time, Dover's Title V, Dover's septic regulations have become more and more like the state Title V, which is why all of a sudden, X number of years ago, 10, 15 years ago, you start to see the mounded septic systems and all.
Okay,
Because the Board of Health was adhering to stricter Dover standards, and developers and homeowners were taking them to court, and they were losing. And the town was spending tens and tens of thousands of dollars every year on legal fees to lose every single case.
got it.
So there was an adjustment, if you will.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you both. Thank you.
Okay, so again, take a look in a little less hectic environment than this meeting, and if you have any thoughts on additional words to use, verbs to use, nouns to use, phrases to make, pros and cons, head them over to Jasmine, if you will, before over the next week and a half. Before we get on to MBTA, I would like to bring up one issue, and that is that there is a citizens petition, which we briefly talked about a while ago, to quote, amend chapter 185, the zoning bylaws of the town of Dover by changing section 185-10, schedule of use, regulations, line 9, accessory use not detrimental to a residential neighborhood. to not required. So right now, as you know, an accessory use building in a residential area, like a cabana, like a pool, like an extra garage, like a barn, like a sports barn, requires site plan review. There's a citizen Dover who came before the planning board back in December and January, who got the required number of signatures, which are at least 14 he has, which authorized him to place on the ballot a request to remove site plan review from residential accessory units. And we haven't been asked yet to give our opinion on this. I did receive a message from the chair of the warrant committee to expect a call from whoever in the warrant committee is going to be handling this particular warrant article, so that they can understand our position on this. And I said, that's great, because we haven't really discussed it yet, and we have to come up with a position on that. So over the next couple of weeks, we're going to have to decide if we support this, if we don't support it, and if we don't support it, why we don't support it. And Jasmine, I would hope that if it does come up at the open hearing, that you can just say that the planning board is still discussing its position, and we'll be conveying that to the warrant committee.
Perfect.
Okay. I have some thoughts on it that I'll share just as a start for thinking, and we can discuss this more at our next meeting on the 24th of March. We joke about site plan review. We state that none of us chose to be an elected member of the planning board to approve pools and cabanas, that we're more interested in looking at the future of Dover and helping the town move forward through zoning and other bylaws. At the same time, even though most of our site plan reviews for these types of structures are simple and get done quickly, we have had situations, and I can think of 15 Park and 20 Haven most recently, where we had a tremendous amount of input from the neighbors. And even though we're somewhat restricted in how we can react to that input, the fact is that it's the only venue in town for neighbors to react. If there's no site plan review, then a neighbor would never know that something's being done on the property next door. The application just goes to the building department. If it meets the state codes and our zoning bylaw, it gets approved by Walter or Joe. And the next thing you know, you come home from work and you see trees cut down and a barn being put in next to your neighbors, and you would never know. So to me, that's the, the pluses and the minuses of doing site plan review. And then you think in terms of the work that's being done now to put together, finally, an online permitting system for Dover. And we can have Jasmine at some point, maybe in April, give us a more detailed update on the software that's been recommended. But generally speaking, one would expect that with an effective online permitting system, the process of folks going to site plan review and hearing the planning board with an online permitting system where we know the comments from the Board of Health, or we know the comments from Mike Angeri, or we know the comments from the building department, or we know the comments from the Open Space Committee or the Conservation Commission, rather than every little silo working in a vacuum, should improve the ability to have an effective site plan review. And we know that we're getting educated on site plan review by Nina. We're going to reschedule that. And that on our agenda for 2026 town meeting is a redo of our site plan zoning bylaw, which is problematic. So when I heard this, and Tom here, who is the 15 Park Street owner, okay, met with me to let me know that he was doing this. My first comment was, there are two sides to the coin. It was a difficult process for you, and you heard things from neighbors that you probably didn't want to hear, but but think if you were one of the neighbors instead of the applicant, which you might be tomorrow. And the other thing is, with all this stuff going on with the online permitting and our review legally of the site plan review, give us a year. See what we can come up with by this time next year. And then let's talk about it. So those are my thoughts. I share them with you. I ask you all to think about this as well, because we will need to discuss this with warrant committee and give our viewpoint before they do their blue book. Okay. Okay, so that's it for town meeting that I have. Anything else on town meeting? Okay, Jody.
Okay, MBTA, just kind of quick and dirty, because I know town meeting is a big priority in the next few weeks, but we've got a lot going on with MBTA as well. So as you guys know, we have a web page now on the town website with lots of information that is updated just as of today, in fact. Thank you, Jasmine. And we will continue to update that web page as often as we need to, in order that we can keep it as up to date as we need to. The big items coming down the pike that you all hopefully can help us promote in the coming weeks are two. One is a survey that has been developed by our consultant, Jeff Davis of Horsley Witten and his team, which will go live, my understanding is tomorrow.
Yes.
And we will start to promote through all sorts of town-wide channels. We're working with Chris Costello, who has the services of a PR team that works with across the town, different departments, to promote the survey, which will be live until March 18th. And it asks for residents to kind of rate and rank, very simple survey, 6 questions, the 3 locations for an MBTA compliant zoning district that have currently been identified and are being evaluated as possible locations. Interestingly, it also asks for residents to let us know if they own a property in Dover that they think we should consider. And so we tried to keep it short and sweet, and we'll see what we learn. Following that survey, which again, we hope you will all promote to your friends, neighbors, and everybody you know, we will be hosting the first of 2 public information sessions, words carefully chosen because they're not open hearings. They're just information sessions hosted by the planning department on Zoom. The first is March 25th at 7 o'clock in the evening. And we'll be walking through sort of little bit of background about the MBTA Communities Act and what it means for Dover and how we're approaching our compliance process and what the various steps will be. The second of those information sessions will be held on April 29th at 7 o'clock. Similar, continue to educate people, presumably by then have more feedback even to the location of a proposed zoning district that complies with the MBTA Communities Act. And then the planning board will be tasked with officially selecting which location we will bring to town meeting for the purposes of compliance. Because at town meeting, which is scheduled for a special town meeting, September 29th, 2025, we need to vote as a community on 2 things, actually 3 things. One is the actual zoning bylaw, which would allow for by right development in a MBTA compliant zoning district. The second thing is changes to our map to identify that district. I guess that's only 2 things. So the location and the changes to the map. So we've got lots to do. We're working with Nina and our consultant Jeff on the development of the bylaw, and that we have to have completed by roughly May 15th, in order that it can kind of be run up the flagpole with the state office that starts to review these things, so that we know that we're not bringing a bylaw to town meeting that we are not allowed to bring, just from a legal perspective. But Nina's got a really good handle on this. She's working with multiple towns on MBTA compliance. So she's a great resource. Jasmine is, and certainly our consultant Jeff is as well. So we've got a good group, and Katie has agreed to joined this work with us and is helping us to pull these various pieces together. So we had a very productive session at the COA on February 26th, where we met with about, I think there were like 18 people, Carol, Jasmine, you might remember, at the library in the community center. We got great questions. They were very attentive and open to hearing what we had to say. They had some ideas about other locations we hadn't thought about, or ways we could think about the places we had thought about. They also just asked smart questions and got us thinking about the kinds of questions we might hear so that we can be ready for that. So I also want to let you know that you all gave us great questions when I asked you to sort of put your newbie hats on and ask questions about MBTA compliance. Those are all collected in our project plan, and we're sort of chipping away at them so that we can make sure we can answer all of those. Part of our survey work also is like, if you can't answer like your thoughts on a given location, what would you need to know in order to be able to answer these questions? Because we really are trying to think about this both from a, you know, get the bylaw written and the location chosen, but really be smart about how we're educating the community and going to town meeting. If you get the Our Town newsletter, you'll see that there's a lot of information about MBTA compliance in that newsletter, which came out today. And stay tuned. Hopefully the survey goes live tomorrow and we're able to share that with all of you so you can start to push it out. So thank you in advance. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jody. I would also just mention that well over 200 letters went out on Friday
Thank you for that. Yeah.
to the owners and abutters of the 3 properties that we've identified as possible overlay districts. We didn't want them to get the survey which showed their property and not have a clue. So hopefully the letters get out in the US mail and to the homes before the digital survey shows up tomorrow. But
And the survey will take some time to push out into the community because not everybody's like waiting with bated breath to go to the town website, but you'll start to see it trickling out, we hope.
Yep. The other thing is that we've asked Jasmine to keep, because we expect the phone to start ringing off the hook to many folks as this becomes real. We've asked Jasmine, and the letters say, please contact the planning board office. So we've asked Jasmine to keep a log of who calls. If they're willing to supply their name, that's great. If not, it will be anonymous. But who calls and what their comments are. Another source of information for all of us as we look at not only FAQs, but get input on things that we haven't thought about. So I ask you as well as planning board members, I'm sure that you're going to start getting calls from your friends and neighbors as well. Please keep track of that and send that information to Jasmine so that she can accumulate all the responses that we get. I'm going to be sending out an email to the selectmen and to Felicia and to Mona and to Mike Blanchard, because I assume that they're going to start getting calls as well. And it's really important for us to the best that we can to accumulate the totality of input that will benefit us the most. So I'd appreciate you doing that.
Carol, I'm so sorry. I believe Jody started this off about outreach and if the planning board members could help. So Jody and Chris worked together with our, a firm that Chris is working with to put together sort of like a flyer. So we could certainly, I'd like to share that with the board as well. They've got a great list on who they're going to be sending that to. But I think, was that something you were going to ask the board to keep in the back of their mind as the elevator speech, or?
Well, I think thank you for that. There are going to be many opportunities to learn more and see more and share more. So whether it's the flyer, once the survey comes out on the Town of Dover Facebook page, for instance, you can share it with any private Facebook groups you might have. Attach it to an email and send it out to folks. We just asked, to Jasmine's point, that every vehicle gets used in the entire communication plan and gets spread out as much as possible. and that would be very helpful. Thank you, Jasmine. Jody, anything else? Folks, anything else about MBTA?
They do have open office hours, this Thursday, and I believe next Thursday as well. This Thursday, I have a meeting with Mike from 10 to 11, and the office hours are at 11, so I think that would be fine. I am going to ask, those two questions specifically, one that came up at the Council on Aging, and one, Jody, that you had asked about, if it'd be putting, if an overlay was placed over existing multifamily, how
right,
they would be
right.
able to develop that. So
Great.
those are the two main ones for EOHLC today. One was about the CR, if you recall, from the
Right.
COA meeting. So those are the two main questions I have for EOHLC. And then we are going to try to get together with Jody, myself, Jeff, Carol, when you come back from vacation, and potentially Chris, just touching base one more time before our March 25th public information session. So again, it's not, you're not required to be there. It'd be great to have you all there to get the input, but it's on a planning board hearing, so.
Jasmine, perhaps after these EOHL, rolls off your tongue.
Yeah, EOHLC, yes.
EOHLC meetings, okay, where we do get actual answers versus things that we have to continue to research. It might be good to distribute those to all of us so that we're all on the same page.
Absolutely.
That's great.
This is complicated stuff because as you see from just reading the Globe every day, I mean, there's another, Middlebury is now sued again. So,
Who has, Carol? Which town?
Middleborough.
Middleborough, whoa.
So, based upon the ruling that this was an unfunded mandate.
From the
Hmm.
auditor.
Mhm.
So, by the state auditor, exactly. So this is squishy. This is a legal term. This is really squishy stuff. And, all we can do is continue to proceed down the path we started from day one when we said, regardless of what the selectmen choose to do about this legally, we're going to continue doing what we feel obligated to do. If things change between now and September, then we'll change them. If things change after September and we get a positive vote, then we'll do an amendment to the bylaw. But, our position has always been from a planning board standpoint that we have an obligation to meet the law. And that's what we're going to do here in Dover. And we'll let the politics play out at the state level. Nina makes it very clear to us every time we talk to her that this is squishy stuff, that there are disagreements, among towns. There are disagreements among attorneys that are representing towns. There's obviously disagreements between local attorneys and state. There's disagreement between different state organizations. So we can just do the best that we can. And that's why it's so important to keep track of all the input. Because we never know when it actually will be very, very relevant. Time will tell. Anything else on town meeting or MBTA?
I
Okay.
just wanted to thank everyone for letting me participate, and I will check in at some point soon. So I'm going to sign off.
John,
Thanks
thank you
again.
so much. I will say that it is always wonderful to have you. We always learn something from you, and thank you so much for coming tonight.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Surprise.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
everyone.
John.
Good night.
Bye.
So we've talked about the open hearing on March 17th that Jasmine will take care of. We've talked about the info session on March 25th. We've talked about the info session on April 22nd. The first thing coming up is the town caucus a week from tonight on March 10th. Katie will be nominated by Jody for to be a full voting member of the planning board. It would be wonderful to have great attendance by the planning board there supporting Katie. So if you could make it, or if friends can make it, it's an important caucus. We have an open selectman seat as well. And we may very well have at least 2 candidates running for that. And again, if three candidates show up for a position, then there's a vote at caucus. So another reason to have you and your friends come to the caucus to support your respective nominee. And I'm sure it will go very, very well. I don't have any.
Your braggy points, Katie, okay? If you get a moment. So I can sort of make sure I hit the points that you think are the best ones to hit.
Sure.
Thank you.
Brief though, right? You just said a few bullet points.
Oh my God, yeah. Like you've lived in Dover for this many years, like a little bit of personal is great. You also have a chance to get up, right, Carol? After I nominate you, and you can say a few things about sort of what's exciting for you about joining the planning board. But I'm going to stand up and be like, we're so delighted to, you know, and give like literally three, 4 bullet points about you.
Okay, no problem. I'll send you something in the email.
Thank you so much.
I think I did send you all an email letting you know that Matt Hadge, who was a candidate for the associate position, has decided not to run for the associate position. So as far as I know at this point, there is no candidate, but I would say that with a 25% certainty because people are probably thinking about this and will be coming to town to the open hearing. Another reason for planning board members to be at the open hearing, at the town caucus, sorry, on the 10th. That's in person in the Great Hall. I think it starts at 7:30. Jasmine, do you have anything else from town planner update? I know we have to approve the minutes.
Oh, yes, let me bring those up.
Let me just do that first. These are the minutes of February 10th. They were included in your package. Did anybody have any changes or edits? In that case, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of February 10th as submitted?
So moved?
Thank you. I'll take a vote. Val,
Yes.
Jody,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
and Carol, yes. Okay, thank you for those. Now, Jasmine, is there anything else?
I just had the EOHLC updates that I was gonna give, and
Okay,
that was it.
okay, that was it. Oh, okay. In that case, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn.
Let's go.
Sorry. I was thinking about something else because I wanted to wish everybody well until I see everybody on the 24th, and I'll be back the night of the 18th. So I'll be glad to turn on my laptop and take a look at the 500 emails from May that are there. If anything comes up on MBTA, Jody and Jasmine are the ones. And I hope things go well at the caucus. And Jasmine, I know you'll do a fine job at the open hearing. And enjoy the Ides of March and St. Patrick's Day. And with that, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:30. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. There we are. Okay, goodbye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a
Safe
great vacation,
travels.
Carol.
Thank you.